Welcome to Stump the Chumps. Welcome to Stump the Chumps, Burlington's only area trivia program, where it goes back in the day where milk was 19 cents a quart and pot was a container, not a plant. But here we are on December 10th, 2020. The Chump. What a year this has been. Burlington's here we are with COVID-19 area trivia program, all of our lives, where it goes back in the day where milk was we're into the Christmas season and pot. This will be a Christmas that we have never known before, never could visualize. But here we are. With Stump the Chumps. What a year this is today. Here we are with stay at home trivia program. All of our lives. Don't travel back in the day where just stay home. We're into the Christmas season and be private. This will be a Christmas. Don't get out in the crowd. Never known. Anyway, regardless of that, here we are with Stump the Chumps. What a year. We got a couple of good guests for you. Here we are. We got trustees all of our lives. We're going to Rosaire Lodge, Rosaire. We're into the Christmas season. A number of private offices. Don't get out in the crowd. These are guests. Anyway, regardless of that, we're going to be but Rosaire, why are you on good guest? What qualifies you to be on the Stump the Chumps?
Because you asked me, Bill.
Okay.
Well, you told me you wanted somebody that had some old history of Burlington and been around for quite a while. I'll be 82 in June, so I guess that qualified me in that regard. And as you said, I have been around the city with a number of different occupations. Started out when I was 21 as a fireman for the city of Burlington for 10 years. Then helped start a fire equipment business that. Even though I sold out 5 or 6 years later, that business is still running today. Went to work when the mayor asked me, prior to that, I was in the legislature a couple of years. The mayor asked me to come to work for the city as an assistant city clerk, which I did for a couple, 3 years. And then he asked me to go to the assessor's office, which I did for another 13 years before retiring from the city. After that, a couple of years later, a lawyer friend of mine told me that they were looking for a court officer at the Chittenden County Court across from Nectar's, where the court officer takes care of the judge during the day, swears in witnesses, handles the jury in and out, and keeps them feeling good with coffee and whatever they need. So I did that for about 20 years. So kind of a lot of stuff around the city of Burlington. So that's why I'm fairly familiar.
That adds up to more than 100 years, doesn't it, Rosaire?
Well,
all those years.
That's the way it feels on the other side of my skin when I get up in the morning.
Okay. And our other guest is my former city councilor friend and fellow baseball umpire, Dave Hartnett. Dave, you've been around town. What qualifies you to be on this program?
Well, I'm not sure it qualifies me, but it's a pleasure to be on. And thanks for asking me. But, long time Burlington resident, grew up in Burlington. On Brooks Ave, 50 plus years, a lot of great memories there, and attended all the Burlington public schools, around to Burlington High School. To me, this has always been the greatest place to live, raise a family, and I hope we can continue it that way down the road. But I spent a lot of time volunteering in the youth little leagues as an umpire, as a coach, and worked my way up through the ranks there. My first experience with the kind of like city stuff was I was on the Parks Commission and chair of the Parks Commission for a few years under John Ewing. I'm sure a lot of people remember that name. John was a great guy. And then I joined the council and was on the council for 8 years. Just an incredible 8 years. What an experience I had, learned a lot, met a lot of great people. And we're fortunate, right? And then to have guys like Rosaire and you, Bill, who have given so much back to the community and do shows like this. And it's an honor to be here. I'm excited to talk about some of the Christmas stories and some of the Burlington stories. So thanks for having me, and I look forward to doing the show.
So did you know one of the starters of the show was Herb Blumenthal? You remember Herb at all, Dave?
I sure do. Herb actually, Bill, and was a baseball umpire with us. He joined the Vermont Northern League Umpires Association, and he was all excited and anxious to do it. He was a big baseball guy, as I think a lot of people know. And I worked a game with Bill Keel, I worked a high school baseball game with Herb a few years after he joined the association. And during the game, I was doing the plate and Herb had the bases. And it was probably the second inning, and there was a ball hit to shortstop, and the runner was on his way to first base, and he was probably out by 5 or 6 steps. And Herb called him safe. And both managers and everybody was yelling and screaming, big argument out by the pitcher's mound. They asked me to overrule Herb. I said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. It was, he's the base umpire, his call. And so the game went on. The next batter came up. The next batter struck out. And the next thing I know, I see Herb over at first base, and he's talking to the kid at first base. And I see the kid walking off the field, taking his helmet off, going to the dugout. So I thought maybe the kid had gotten hurt and we were waiting for a replacement. And so I walked out and I said, Herb, what's going on? And he says, well, I thought about it and I changed my mind. I think he was out. And I said, well, Herb, it doesn't work that way. I said, we got to keep him there, right? So one batter later, Herb wanted to take advantage of having an instant replay, let's say, right, in his mind, and thought, well, I better. And so, of course, everyone couldn't believe it, but we eventually put the kid back to first. But anyone that knew Herb loved kids. He loved sports. He loved local sports. That's why we're here today with this show. He was the originator of Stump The Chump, and he had a local radio show as well.
Yeah, he loved, I could identify with that call. But also Herb loved Burlington, loved to do the trivia, and he was a great anchor for this show. Well, let's get into some of this Christmas.
Bill, excuse me for interrupting, but before you leave Herb, let me ask you a question. Bill, we're talking about trivia, aren't we? Yeah. Bill lived above his parents' store. Can either of you tell me where that store was?
Dave, can you?
Was it North Champlain Street?
No.
Was it North Willard Street?
No.
North Willard and North Willard and North, that wasn't his store?
No, but you're right when using the word north.
North Tunuski Avenue.
It was on the corner of North Champlain and Monroe. Big
I know.
Type of store.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think it was after his parents had passed away. There was a major fire there that ended up, and Herb was still living up there, but he wasn't hurt. And the building ended up being, I think it was ended up tearing down or major renovation. I forget which now, but because that was quite a few years ago. But that's where Herb always lived all the time that we knew him. And wow, Herb was a classmate of mine back at BHS class of '58. So I knew Herb from way back.
And viewers, if you've got a question, if you got a comment, or you have a story to share, give us a call, 862-3966, and share it with us. But okay, let's get into the Christmas tree. Now, how about, first of all, Dave, this is a lot about large families. How many kids in your family?
There was 8 of us, 7 boys and 1 girl.
Wow. Well, hooray for Sheila and John, right there for your parents.
The Christmas time was the best time.
So how did you go out to get your Christmas tree? Did you go out and get it? Did the kids, did the family, or did you just go to Freckles Kegel and get it down there on Shelburne Road?
Well, that's interesting because we talk about that all the time. I had one brother, Jimmy, who had asthma, and he was allergic to real trees. Oh. And so we had to have an artificial tree.
Oh.
And nobody was, everyone was kind of sad about that, right? Everyone wanted a real tree, but we realized why we couldn't have one. And so when the years went on, and like when I started my traditions with my family, it was always a real Christmas tree because we had to have artificial back then. But for us now, we go down every year or go out to White's in Jericho. We cut our own tree down and we have a real tree. But growing up, I think everyone really wanted a real tree in our house, but we were unfortunate. We had to have a artificial tree, but we made the best of it, and it was still a great times at Brooks Ave.
Well, I didn't get why you didn't want a real tree. Why did you not want to get a real tree again?
we had, my brother Jimmy was very allergic.
Oh, okay,
Allergies, and he had asthma, and it would really kind of trigger that. And so we weren't
okay.
able to have a real tree in the house. It
Rosaire,
was always artificial growing up.
Rosaire, do you have a real tree or artificial?
Yes, when my son was young but old enough to put a snowsuit on, and we'd go out to the woods, not to a tree farm, but to the real woods, and find a tree the size that we wanted, and would cut it down and bring it home. We did that for until he grew up. After that, we couldn't, because there was only one child. So once he left home, all my wife and I did, we had a little table in the corner of the living room with a little manger on it, and an artificial tree. But all growing up, we had the real tree, and it was always a hard job to keep it from drying up too soon. Uh, as you notice, you told me this was going to be a lot about Christmas, so I invited a reindeer to come along with me, hoping that it would brighten things up and cheer people. And in case it was cold, I put my red scarf on and got my pom pom. So I'm ready for the season.
Yes, you did. Now for some strange reason, at our house, most of my kids grew up around in the New North End, and we got a silver tree. It was a stock silver tree with, you put in the branches. They're all silver, and top and bottom, and you put the branches in the side. And when we bought it at the store, it was all wrapped up right neatly. But then you took it apart and you put the branches in, if you will. It was all silver and brightly and all that stuff. And so that it went over well with me, but it didn't go over well with my wife and 5 kids. But anyway, that was it. But hey, I have a artificial tree on the basis that there's no fire issue and no watering issue, and you can argue that a regular tree stays in the landfill fewer years than an artificial tree. So anyway, that is the tree issue. How about Santa Claus? Dave, how'd you deal with Santa Claus, and who was the one that told you there is no Santa Claus, and how'd you keep that secret?
Well, it was my brother Michael who told myself, my younger brother Stephen, and Mary there was no Santa, and he got grounded for 2 weeks. Okay? So that's how we found out there wasn't a Santa. But we've always, we always were believers, right? And there was always stories. My parents just made, mom and dad made Christmas a great time at our house, and so Santa was always, talked about, and we believed probably a little longer than we should have, to be honest with you. But my brother kind of, spoiled that whole thing by telling us, and I'll never forget. My parents were so mad, and he got grounded for a couple of weeks for doing it. And then it was just, I went on for years later because of that, right? And played Santa myself multiple different times for different parties in the boys club and different kids function, King Street Youth Center years ago and stuff. And I think it's a time of year that people just like to celebrate, and they like and they want to be happy, right? And I think we look where we are today because of COVID, and I thought that was great that Governor Scott asked everybody to go out and celebrate with lights and kind of decorate their homes and have people feel good about themselves and see it. So we certainly do that. We do it every year, but we did a little bit more this year with outside lights, and so we're trying to make it as special as we can, but it's difficult times, as we all know.
Your folks, viewers, you're watching Stump the Chumps on this December 10th. My name is Bill Keogh, your host. Joey Dunham is not available tonight. We have our guest, Rosaire Lange and Dave Harden. Rosaire, how did you deal with the Santa Claus issue? Do you remember?
Well, I've always been pretty much of a very practical, realistic type of person. So I really don't remember ever truly believing in Santa Claus. I think I always saw it as somebody's wrapping the gifts and putting them under there. So that takes away the fun when you're a practical type of person. So But we tried to carry that on with when our son was real young, and it probably succeeded for a few years. But I think by the time he was about 7, I think he kind of knew it was us. You haven't asked about the funny part, but this probably leads into it. When he was about 12 or 13, what he wanted more than anything for Christmas was a bumper pool table, which that would go down in our rec room downstairs. So while he was in school, I picked one up somewheres and brought it home in a box and hid it downstairs. And so on Christmas morning, after we made sure we got up about 2:30, 3 o'clock. My wife and I go downstairs while obviously he should have been sleeping, and we're taking it all apart to put it together. Well, those things don't go together quite as easy as what they say they do. We even had to do a little bit of drilling and a lot of bolts and stuff like that. And I'm real bent over, busy working on it. And all of a sudden I look up and there he is sitting on the stairs watching us. You're not the bed. He's, well, I want to see you put the table together. So the surprise was all gone.
Okay, Dave, did you have a Santa Claus coming down the chimney? Did you leave the cookies? Did you have a cup of coffee, or did you a Budweiser or anything like that for Santa Claus?
Milk and cookies at
No?
the house, and that was always big. They were out the night before, on the porch, right?
Okay.
And so we would go through all that. That was all done, and then of course, that was done when we were kids, and so we did that with our daughter Katie, and that was the reindeer dust, right? All the stuff you threw out there that they were there. We did it all, and it's all kind of part of it. It was great. I was thinking about what Rosaire said. 7 years old was maybe when they stopped believing that. That's got us by about 3 years. We were more like, I think, 10 or so. We wanted to believe a little bit longer. And then even with my daughter, I'm not sure what grade she was in. It was I think it was 4th grade. I picked her up from school one day and she came out to the car and she looked at me and she just said, "There's not a Santa Claus." And I said, "Well, why is that?" She said, "Our teacher told us." I mean, she just assumed everyone stopped believing. She goes, "But Dad, I believed." Right. So it's interesting how, what kids, how long they believe, when they knew. And so it's a lot of fun and we enjoyed it. We always had different traditions. I'm sure you guys did too for Christmas, right? Christmas Eve,
sure.
we all got to open one gift on Christmas Eve. We got to pick it, we got to open it, and that was one of the big traditions that we had on Brooks Ave as the Hartnett family, and that's one of the traditions that we kept here at my house.
Well, we did have a fireplace when we lived in the South End, and we did put the cookies down. The chocolate chip cookies with the M&Ms in it, and I think it was Coca-Cola, and of course we had it there the night before, so the kids knew, hey, it's all intact. So when Santa comes, and next morning, of course, the cookies we left a few crumbs there. You're right, and the container was empty. So was that, Roseanne? Did you have an experience like that, or?
Well, my wife would never put out the cookies and milk or anything that was chewable, because she knew 5 minutes after she was to bed, I would have eaten them all up.
Sure.
Now, what about carrots? Did you leave any carrots out for them too, for the eyesight?
No, the carrots only go on as a nose on a snowman.
I never heard of that one, Dave.
They said Santa's eyesight wasn't very good because he was old, so they'd leave the carrots out as well.
Oh, okay.
Never heard that one.
All right, now Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve was sort of chaos in my house. One of the biggest challenges was putting those damn games together. You go to the store, you get the games together, and then you got to assemble them Christmas Eve. And that was a pain in the butt to do that. And I got sweaty armpits many times by putting this damn thing together. So we had Christmas Eve, and then as the kids got older, we said, all right, now, if all the gifts are under the tree, what do? Do we give out all the gifts on Christmas Eve? Do we give one at a time or give none? Rosaire, what's your experience on that?
Well, what we pretty much always, from the time he was old enough to know what a gift under the tree was all about, he, like all kids, he was anxious. So we always had the experience of opening, each of us opened one up the night before. So, somewhere it's probably around 9 o'clock where he'd get to play with it for a little while and stuff like that. And
So
then,
you give one gift, you give one gift?
one gift, each of us, my wife and I and our son, each of us would open up one gift.
Now, how did you pick that gift? Did you go around and say, well, I want the biggest one, I want the smallest one, which is the one the most expensive, which is the cheapest?
Well, I'm not quite sure how Irene and I would pick one up, but I know our son would always look for the one that was probably one of the two that he was asking for the most. He would try to identify what it was. And she always said, Irene always tried to wrap those up in ways like a box inside of a box or something extra, so it didn't look like what it was. And he'd try to figure out which one and open up the one he wanted. And if it wasn't, then he'd complain, I want a second one, I want a second one. No, you can't break the rules. The rules are one, and that was it.
And those are the rules.
Yeah, then he'd spend the next hour, entertaining himself with that one, and then it was bedtime.
Dave, how was that on Brooks Avenue?
It was wild. It was a wild scene. That's the best way I can describe it. And
Tell me more.
We opened it. We got to open one gift, but it was a gift from either my mom or dad or another brother. Right? It was never from Santa because Santa hadn't been there yet. So there was no gifts open from Santa, and it was usually more like a stocking stuffer, right? That would fit in a stocking and something like that. It wasn't a big gift, but we all got to open one gift. And then after we opened the gift, it was upstairs, right? Lights out, and Santa was coming. But Christmas Eve was wild at our house. I remember this one particular one. We were all very young at the time, and my parents wanted to go to midnight mass.
I was going to bring that up. That was on your schedule. Okay.
Yeah, but we didn't go. We were all young. They wanted to go, and so they got a babysitter to come in. It was one of the Sheehy girls from North Prospect Street. Big family of the Sheehys had come down to watch us while they had gone to. And most of us obviously were in bed by the time they left and stuff. But of course we were all awake, and out the door they went for mass, and down the stairs all 7 of us came, including 8 of us, because our sister was right behind us as well. So there was 8 of us running down the stairs as soon as they left for midnight mass, and we got into some of the gifts. And back then they had these plastic dart guns, and 5 of us got these little plastic dart guns with these little rubber darts that you could shoot, and we opened them up, and we started knocking off all the bulbs on the tree with them. We must have broke 20 Christmas bulbs on the tree with the dart guns, right?
All this happened when your parents were at church?
Yeah, they were at church, and it was like, so there's like 6 or 7 of us got the dart guns out, and we're using the bulbs for target practice. And when they got home, it was a mess. And of course, the babysitter didn't know what to do, and it was crazy. Needless to say, that was the last time they went to midnight mass. And but it was just a wild night. Christmas Eve was a wild night at our house. Christmas Day was wild. It was great.
Okay, but before we get to Christmas Day, Rosaire, do you have anything like that at your house?
No, we were always pretty quiet. On Christmas Day, we always had the big dinner and everything else. One of the things I didn't mention was when you were talking about lighting up trees and stuff like that. We moved to this house in the summer of 1965, and there was a cedar tree on each of the 4 corners. Well, the front corner that was between the driveway and the front steps, I tore that cedar out of there, and I got a Colorado blue spruce to put in so that I'd have the kind of tree to light up for Christmas. And it was only 4 or 5 feet when you first put it in, but every year we put the lights out on it, and it kept growing and growing. Of course, being on the corner of the house, it got a lot of water from the roof and everything. And eventually, just with a 24-foot ladder, I couldn't reach the top. So I'd back up my pickup truck and put the ladder in the back of the pickup truck, so I could get up and get the star up on the top of it. And eventually, even that didn't work. I'd get up on near the last rung of the ladder, which got to be pretty dangerous. And I ended up having to cut the tree down and pull the stump out and plant another one. And lo and behold, the same scenario happened. We've been here so long that 2 of those trees went to the height that we couldn't decorate them anymore, and had to take them both out and put in a 3rd tree. But that was our best lighting experience that we had, and we always loved, because those trees get pretty big. When you'd light them all up, it lit up the house. That was something I really enjoyed doing every year. Of course, you didn't, after New Year's, you didn't enjoy getting up there in the cold to take the lights down. No, but we went through two of them and into a 3rd one.
Now, in our house, we had a tough time. We told the kids before they went to bed that you don't go after the tree till we get up. Okay, so you stay in your bedroom till Mom and Dad get up. Now, Mom and Dad were up, as I said earlier, putting the toys together and all that. And then so we probably had a couple of beers. And so we didn't want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go to, so we had them stay in their rooms. And I think they, as I recall, they did. When we get up, man, they dashed towards the tree. And they would open all their gifts. And there was sort of like your house, Dave, it was sort of chaos. This is one thing that I did. You know, they get all these gifts all at once under the tree. I used to hide them. After they opened them, they'd get about 5 or 10 gifts, and they'd focus on 1 or 2 gifts. Okay, and so I would get maybe 3 or 4, and I'd put them away so they would forget them. Then bring them back a couple of months later, and whoa, it's all brand new toy again. Well, I remember seeing that. That was my
good idea.
So what did you do the rest of the day? Did you go sliding, or did you go maybe went to church? Some of you went to church.
No, Christmas Day started. You know, we got up early and we'd go down and wait by the tree until our parents got up. And,
okay. You stood there.
Right.
You stood there. You waited.
And we used to peek around the corner up the stairs to see if we could see him coming. And we'd have a lookout, and someone would say, yeah, he's on his way, get his coffee, because we couldn't open the gifts until he had his cup of Maxwell House coffee, right? So we did that, and then we all got ready for 11 o'clock Mass at Cathedral.
Oh.
So we opened the gifts, somewhere between 6 or 7 in the morning, and then we would head to church for 11, and then we'd come back and we'd have our Christmas dinner, and then from there it was just a free-for-all. The racetracks, the GI Joes, the dart guns, the train sets, you name it, right? It was all over the place, and so it was just a lot of fun. It was great. They were the best times we've had on Brooks Ave,
So do you still share some of those memories with your siblings?
Oh, absolutely. We talk about it all the time. In fact, my mom just sold Brooks Ave a year ago. So the first Christmas was a year ago that we didn't have our first Christmas after 55 years on Brooks Ave in the living room. So yeah, you share those stories. They were all good stories. They're, the good times, and we're grateful that my mom's still alive. She's 92, and she has a great memory, and she's great at telling stories, and we enjoy listening to her stories. And it's kind of neat to hear what her Christmases were like when she was a kid as well.
Does she remember the first time that I went on a double date with Sheila O'Brien and another? Huh?
You picked my mom up hitchhiking.
I did.
What the heck? In Richmond, Vermont.
What's that?
In Richmond, Vermont, when they get off the train.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. And they were hitchhiking to Burlington. Her and Catherine Kilpack.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. No, Bill. I hear the story a lot.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
Have you wondered maybe who your dad might have ended up being if that romance would have gone on further?
I just asked my mom how serious it got, and she said they were just friends. But he picked her up, and they. Oh yeah. And Bill, I forgot the guy that you were with. Oh, I don't. It was Dave Pichet. It was Mr. Bill or Bob Pichet.
Really?
Yes. It was you and Bob Pichet that picked him up from Winooski.
Bob Pichet from Winooski?
Yes.
Yeah, he was the clerk of the House for up in the
Sure.
legislature for many, many years. Wonderful, great guy. Wonderful guy.
Yep, Bob Pesci, I was in the National Guard with him, and of course, when I served in the House, why, he was the clerk of the House.
That's right.
Well, we're about to wrap up, guys.
Okay.
This has been outstanding. Dave, thank you for sharing your Brooks Avenue contingent and what went on there. Rosario, you're always a good guest. Boy, I wish we'd go back to stumping questions with you because I think you have all the answers anyway.
Hey,
So,
Bill, I want to tell you, I've known you for a long time since you were with Commissioner of the Park Department in Burlington, and I've known you as a very intelligent, smart fellow. Now I know why the statue behind you is the thinker. So that's your philosophy, yeah?
yes, and I'm still thinking. Okay, guys, thanks again. Have a Merry Christmas to all and stay safe most of all. Why? Because you want to have another Christmas with your families together.
And
Merry
happy
Christmas.
holidays to everyone.
Yep.
Thanks for viewing.